Welcome back to Trying to Figure It Out. We are here in Las Vegas today. We are with Jimbo the Drag Clown. Welcome to Trying to Figure It Out.
Thank you. Hey, Allie. I'm so
excited
to be here.
Jimbo is doing a residency in RuPaul's Drag Race Live in Las Vegas, and I had the pleasure of seeing the show myself a few weeks ago. And after seeing the show, I was like, I have to meet Jimbo in real life and do an interview with Jimbo.
Oh my gosh, Allie, you are so sweet. I remember meeting you. Immediately, I gravitated towards you and your energy. You've got such a brightness and light around you.
Before we get into all things you, I want to talk a little bit about RuPaul in general and what RuPaul means to the drag community.
So RuPaul was another kind of beacon of queerness and out and proud living before there was a lot of mainstream examples of that. And I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s and being closeted and queer, but not really knowing even that word or what community I could belong to. I just knew that I was different, and the things that I liked, I was told often weren't for me. There were either girly things or embarrassing things or shameful things. RuPaul was someone that was living loud, living out of the box, and being successful. So I just remember seeing RuPaul and being astounded that that was a man. Like, could you believe it? That beautiful woman is a man. It was really exciting to see someone like RuPaul embracing their femininity and being celebrated and being so fabulous and a star. So they represented a lot of freedom and a lot of success doing you.
Absolutely. How old were you when you first started noticing all these things about yourself?
I would say quite young. Like, I was maybe about 5 when I was sitting on the counter in the bathroom with my mom. She was doing her makeup and getting ready for work. But I remember putting on some lipstick and a little bit of makeup and looking in the mirror, and just that simple transformation. I just remember going, oh, yeah, I'm beautiful. I remember just being, amazed at myself, and that could transform me in that way. And also it was something of my mom's, so there's something special. Yeah, it unlocked something where I was really interested in that. I loved it. I loved that feeling of being heightened and being a bit beautiful. And so after that, I kind of had my own little makeup stash that I would hide and do a bit of makeup. And then my grandma lived with us. I stole all of her jewelry and a lot of these like fancy old shoes and weird old clothes that were fancy. And I remember hiding in the basement and doing drag and dressing up. So my brother and I would dress up in my mom's clothes and my grandma's clothes, and we put on makeup and we just get our life being little divas, little drag queens in training, just babies down there. But that kind of went away as I grew up, and my dad, as he found out I was doing that more and more, he became more and more afraid that I was going to be gay, and so he really did his best to stop that.
How did your mom navigate having different opinions than your dad? Because it sounds like your mom was supportive of you.
She really saw it all as like a sense of play. She saw it as harmless. She was always really open. She was always saying, if you guys have anything you want to tell me, if you want to, if you ever need to come out, that's okay. And at that time, I didn't have enough examples of healthy queer role models to say, yeah, like that's who I want to be. At that time, there's a lot of characters, a lot of caricatures of gayness that I didn't align with. That wasn't easy for me to go like, yeah, that's me. But my mom has encouraged me my whole life to be myself and to never take no for an answer if I believe it in my heart. She says to push forward and to fight for what I believe in and who I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Does she come to your shows often?
As much as she can.
Is your brother also a queen?
My brother is a performer and an actor and a model, and I've put him in drag as well. I think growing up, he was kind of doing a lot of what I was doing, which was dressing up, and so he was into it and loved playing and having fun in that way. But and he still, dabbles in makeup and kind of feeling the fantasy, but I don't know if he naturally gravitates towards drag on his own.
How much do you think it helped you as a child having your brother to go through some of the things you were experiencing?
Well, I think it was crucial. We went through a lot of trauma, turmoil, a lot of alcoholism, unrest, kind of fleeing into shelters and escaping in the night. And there's a lot of scary scenarios. And when you've got your buddy, your little, I had my little brother, we always had each other. It was hard and easy at the same time. It was hard because we were both gay, queer, but closeted, and we were closeted from each other as well, which was really hard.
Interesting.
It wasn't until he came out later, and I didn't come out until after him, that we were honest with each other about our sexuality. But growing up, we weren't really safe to be gay or queer. So both of us had to hide it from ourselves and from each other in order to be accepted.
That's really hard. At what age were you able to break out of the environment that you were in that didn't allow you to freely express yourself?
Well, essentially, it was when I kind of got away from my dad. My dad was a really overbearing influence in my life. So I moved out west when I was about 25 I had friends that I had been out there, and I had a lover. His name was Hank. I fell deeper in love with Hank and decided, okay, this is me, and I'm not gonna hide this anymore, and I don't need to try and search for myself anymore. I've found it. I know what's up. I'm gay. This is who I love. This is who I am. And I was able to go back to my community and my family and everyone and say, okay, this is me. This is who I am. This is who I love. This is my truth. And everyone accepted me, and they all said, yeah. We know. We kind of thought that. And it was like everyone else knew but me, but it took a while to really come to terms with everything. Yeah, it was really when I moved out west and was able to get away from my dad that I was able to really come into myself and to really accept myself.
How would you describe that feeling of coming out to your family and your loved ones and their reaction being like, we know, and inside you felt so many factors of why you couldn't or why it wasn't the right time for you? Is that how do you navigate a situation like that where everyone's kind of just like, oh, we knew, and you're like, wait, what?
For anyone that knew me and for anyone that I was coming out to, they were familiar with my story and they could understand the pressures that I was under. So I don't think that that they were surprised in that respect either. I think when they knew, okay, well, you waited until you were safe, so
Right.
That makes sense. There was a lot of self-discovery, and there was a lot of growth that came out of aligning with myself, that everyone, you couldn't help but celebrate. If you were my friend or my family, you really see when someone steps into their full self and they really start to thrive because their whole self is there now.
Absolutely.
You can't help but celebrate that and go, okay, yeah, this obviously was what you needed. So
That's amazing. So before you came out, you had just graduated college.
yes.
You studied biology.
Yes.
Is there a world where you were a scientist?
Yes, there still is a world where
Tell
I'm
me
a
about
scientist. I grew up with a huge curiosity. My dad was a microbiologist and a scientist, and a researcher and a physicist. So I grew up with a huge appreciation for science and nature. But I was just trying to get acceptance from my dad and do what I thought he wanted, which was to be a little scientist. So going through high school, I was more interested in art. I was more interested in performance. I was really interested in theater and writing and all that creative fun stuff. And my dad kind of clued in about grade 11, grade 12 and said, like, what are you doing again? I was like, oh, it's amazing. I'm doing English history and I'm doing drama and I'm doing social studies and I'm doing writing and I'm doing Canadian literature. And he was like, what? No. You're doing science like me. And none of that will ever pay you any money. So artists don't make money. You need to be a scientist. That's the only thing that will make money. That's the only thing I'll pay for. So he called and he canceled all of my curriculum and changed it. Calculus, algebra and geometry, science, chemistry. So it was super heavy workload. So I went in the next day. My guidance counselor said, well, I know you wanted to do all this. Your dad called. You're doing this. He signed you up in all maths and science and chemistry.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, like, can you do that? She said, yeah. And she's like, I don't think you're going to be able to do this. And I was like, you're the guidance counselor. What do you
can't
mean
say
you don't
that.
believe in me? So then I was like, I'm kind of a fighter. So if someone says I can't do it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. So I busted my ass. I became a little scientist. I went from failing chemistry to being in the chemistry club. It was a bit difficult because everyone else was really enjoying their senior year and being free and skipping classes. And I was now working harder than I had ever worked to get this down. And so I ended up graduating with really good with honors and going to university for science and enrolling in biology. And my plan was to become a doctor. I really wanted to work with people and to help people. And my dad was, really into doctors and that whole thing. That's kind of what I did, and I went in that direction for a while, but my degree ended up taking a long time because I ended up saying, he was controlling me. He was saying, okay, well, I'll only pay for this, and if you do this, and you can do that, and the money became too much of a control. So I eventually said, you know what, I'm going to pay for this myself. Mm-hmm. You can keep your money. So then I worked half-time at a bar, and I went to school half-time. Wow. I would do 6 months in a bar, 6 months at school. So it took me 8 years to finish my undergrad. And by the time I was done, there was a field course to go study in Uganda through the conservation of biology course. And so I studied bats in the rainforest in Uganda. But at the end of that trip, I discovered, okay, all of these scientists are obsessed with like the wing of a moth or like the leg on the back of a bug that's eaten by this one type of bird and this type of year. And it was all so specific. And they spent their whole life on the reproductive cycle of a moth in this region of the world. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. I can't lock myself away and study something so minute to become an expert.
Yeah.
I can't. That's not me. I'm more about the people. I wanted to party. I was always the fun one that was like, all right, let's get all these scientists out there and let's find the party. Let's get in trouble. I was always the troublemaker. So it was no surprise that kind of shortly after that, when I graduated and I fulfilled what my dad wanted and I got my degree and I moved out west, I got away from him. And that's when I kind of realized, I need to stop living for my dad. So the scientist is in me. It's still a part of me, but that was definitely something I was pressured. Thinking back, I wish he had seen me for who I was and put me on my track faster. But, that's life.
Where you are now, do you feel like you've been able to forgive, and do you feel like you've been able to heal?
I think that I'm always in the process of healing. And I think that that's what I use my art for. I think I'll always keep processing.
You truly are a fighter.
Thank you.
Just based on hearing your story.
Thank you.
It's very clear. So walk me through now how you got to where you are today. How did you start doing drag? How did you start in clowning?
The drag started when I was a little kid. I was always interested in dressing up and kind of being feminine and stuffing my bra with balloons and things to try and get that feeling and putting, baby bells.
Yeah.
The wax, we would make them into nails and you'd kind of press the baby bell onto your nails.
Really?
Yeah, you could sculpt little red nails out of baby bell wax. You can tape cans on your feet and they become high heels.
That I've seen, actually.
But yeah, so prior to moving out west, I was working in a nightclub called the Starlight, and my friends there were really fun. We had so much fun all the time. They knew that I was creative. They really brought that out in me and said, like, let's have some fun on the slow nights. Some nights they would go around the bar and they would gather up items like from the lost and found and a few posters and some Christmas decorations, and they would bring them to me and say, make something. And I would make a sculpture, or I'd make a pop-up card, or I'd make some mobile thing, something to entertain people, and they would go, what the fuck, like, look, you made that, I would carve it and paint it and do this whole shebang. So they were really celebrating my artistic skills, and I was kind of getting off on like, oh, look, I can make this out of nothing. So then I moved out west. I started working in theater, making sets and props and costumes. So I took those skills of kind of being able to make something out of nothing and worked in theater, and that's kind of what theater is all about, taking low budgets and sparkly things and throwing it together to make something happen. And I'm a procrastinator. So I kept being late to bring things to rehearsal, and they were like, this is beautiful, but the show opens in an hour. No one's seen this. No one's rehearsed with it. They were like, if you want it in the show, you have to puppeteer it. If you want that in the show, you have to wear it in the show because you haven't given anyone the time to work with it or use it. So then they kind of put me in the show. The director, Britt, was like, you should be on stage. So I started to get on stage through this vaudeville troupe, Atomic Vaudeville. And that was kind of my first taste of it. And then I started doing clowning. They were like, okay, well, you were great in the show. That was so funny. You're a natural. Take some clowning. And then I took the clowning. The clowning helped me understand my relationship with the audience. Like, what am I doing? Clowning's about kind of showing up with whatever you've got and just doing whatever feels real in that moment. So I loved that freedom. It really released all of that stuff to me that was a barrier in terms of performance, which is the preparation, the idea that you need to fully realize something and rehearse it and know that it's funny before presenting it. That was a barrier at that time for me as like a young artist. I was like, how do you do that? Whereas clowning is just show up.
How do you balance being funny, shocking, and sexy all at once?
Okay, balancing funny, shocking, and sexy all at once. Well, sexy to me was something also, being queer and closeted, sexiness and, reclaiming my own sexiness was kind of a process for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's a process for everybody, is finding your sexy self and feeling comfortable doing that. And everything I do, I try to weave in a little sense of humor, a little wink to let people know it's okay to laugh. And I really want people to laugh at sexuality and their own sexuality and to take some of that pressure off of ourselves and of shame and of guilt around who we are and what we like, and really allow ourselves to experiment and to try things and to try things on and to have that ability to let things move through you without them totally defining your existence. You can try things on and have a moment and let it flow on, and it's not you forever. And that's what I love drag. It allows you to kind of flow into something and try it, and it stays if it stays, and it flows if it flows.
100%. It's season 8 of RuPaul's All Stars.
Yeah.
Let's go into your costume design and all of that. Were you making every single one of those costumes yourself?
So essentially, through the seasons, as I got busier and booked and touring, I was able to kind of contribute less. So Canada's Drag Race, I'm working in film. I was the head of my department as a costume designer. So I was so fortunate going into Canada's Drag Race that I had that skill. I was like, this is what I do. And it was really personal and really awesome. I loved it. Then All Stars UK versus the World. That was in the pandemic, hard to get supplies, hard to ship internationally. So again, I kind of benefited from the setup I had at home with this home studio. And then I went on to All Stars 8, and by that time the world had opened up. I was now traveling, I was booked consecutively on tours, so I wasn't at home in my studio anymore. Right. And so I was able to kind of, on that time, work remotely on the road. I had now developed contacts around the world with different designers, and I had even more money now because I had been touring and being paid as a RuPaul's Drag Race queen, which is much better than when you're not. Through Drag Race, you kind of get exposed to different designers around the world. Right. You kind of start looking around going like, ooh, that would be fun to work with them. And here's so-and-so in Brazil and so-and-so in France and so-and-so in the Philippines. So I was really working with people around the world. I always have an input, and I always have like a kind of creative control over what's happening, because I think that's important on Drag Race. You have to be able to talk about your look and your point of view. So I do love making looks, and I still do make some looks, but being on the road, it's hard to keep doing that.
In a time where drag is being politicized again and banned in some places, what do you think people still don't understand about what drag actually does for queer people?
Well, I think that people don't understand that it's an art form still. I think that there's a lot of people that will quickly discard it as like a fetish or as something that's like shameful or wrong or like, ooh, like you do that. It's a source of freedom and a source of self-expression, and also a source of information. About like connecting yourself to a community, information about yourself, sexuality. There's so much tied up into drag and or being in your full self that's a threat to the system that's been developed, the binary system and the social norms that have been set up and the pressures that have been set up. It's something that's always been done. It's always been a part of theater and performance and making people laugh. And it's also something that's, people have been playing with gender and gender rules and clothing and expression for all time. And RuPaul puts it best by saying, everyone's in drag. It's all drag. Or what did she say? Not me messing up her quote. And we're all born naked and the rest is drag. Oh my God. But you know it. So,
I know what you're talking about.
So we're all in some form of drag. And I think when people realize that, like, oh, businessmen, when a businessman puts on a suit and tie and they comb their hair and wear the shiny shoes and got the briefcase and the watch and the whole thing, that's drag. That's them presenting in a higher version of themselves. And so when people realize, like, oh, okay, like, I do my own drag, it doesn't have to be controversial, it doesn't have to be necessarily cross-dressing. Drag is just about putting stuff on yourself to be closer to who you want to be. And so that comes in so many different forms, and it doesn't have to be threatening or negative or bad, because it generally doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah. So well said.
Thank you.
Truly. It is Pride Month. How have you been celebrating Pride this year?
Lots of gay sex.
That's amazing.
The only way to celebrate. No.
Period.
Pride Month, I am celebrating by being in an iconic queer show on the main strip of Las Vegas. It's really important now, more than ever, to be unafraid, to keep doing what we're doing. There's all kinds of pressures to stop doing drag and to conform and to be fearful of ourselves and personal freedoms. Just by being a queen right now, by continuing to be out there, by putting myself out there, that's what Pride's all about. It's about being visible, it's about being unapologetic, it's about not letting social pressures and social norms dictate the way that we live or love or express.
Absolutely. If you could give your younger self or anyone who is growing up similar to you advice, what would it be?
My advice is that the world can feel very small when you haven't gotten out of your bubble, and sometimes it can feel like you're really alone or that you're totally different than everyone around you, and that can feel really isolating until you realize, oh, it's temporary and there are greater communities out there and there's ideas of chosen family, and once you start moving beyond the geography of your situation and you start going out into the world, you start opening yourself up to all kinds of friendships and connections. We all have friends waiting for us, and we just don't know them. We haven't met them. I'd say to anyone that's feeling isolated, like, hang in there and also put yourself out there. You can't find your people until you are living as yourself and putting yourself out there. Yeah. And I think once you align with yourself and you show yourself, you find your people and you find your tribe, and that allows you to open up even more. I couldn't have done any of this without community. So yeah, that's what I say. Hang in there until you find your people and they're out there.
That's great advice. Okay, before we wrap up, which I'm sad to wrap up, we are going to do some rapid fire questions.
Great.
What is your best makeup tip?
Ooh, my best makeup tip. If you need to fix your makeup, you use a dewy setting spray. You basically reactivate your makeup and you fix it, and then you set it with powder or more setting spray after.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Best skincare tip?
I would say is to stop drinking alcohol. As soon as I stopped drinking, I noticed a huge impact on my skin, and that idea that you kind of radiate from within is really, really true.
What is a makeup removal nightmare you've had?
Oh, I went through the TSA and boarded my plane and everything with my full face on, and was like, had to go into the bathroom with a whole bunch of paper towels and that little tiny sink with that little trickle of water. And, I made a huge mess, and I looked, absolutely terrible after.
That is a bit of a nightmare.
It was a bit of a nightmare.
What is your favorite Pride anthem?
I think it changes. Last summer we were all in that Brat Summer I always love a little bit of Kim Petras. Of course, we cannot leave out our queen, Miss Demi Lovato.
Period. Agreed.
Yeah, anything by Demi.
What are your best tucking tips?
Okay, well, I'm not the best at tucking. I have a lot to tuck, and it's often squished and not done right. So my tucking tip is get tucking underwear that fits you, because a lot of tucking underwear is really small, and it's hard to kind of bundle everything up and squish it back without it spilling out the sides and then getting cut off. The kind of crazy way to do it that I don't do it, but you're supposed to empty your ball sack out, push your balls up into above your private area, pull your penis down, tape it under, fold your empty ball sack over the penis, and tape that too.
Like trying to picture the step by step, and it's wild.
It's twisted. Trust me, it's twisted.
Is it painful?
It's so painful. So I don't do that way anymore. So my tucking tip is don't tuck. Let that baby fly.
Free it.
Free Willy.
What are your best lip syncing tips?
I'd say eye contact. I think a lot of times when people perform, there's some nerves or whatever it is. A lot of times people will look anywhere else but in the eyes of the people. And from an audience perspective, I love when the performer is with you. It's called allowing yourself to be seen in clowning, and that's when you really allow the audience in through your eyes to access you. Don't be afraid to connect with people and to allow them to see you in that moment.
That makes a lot of sense. That's actually really good advice. What is your biggest drag ick?
Ooh, being disrespectful of women in drag. I think there's a fine line to having fun and being playful, and also being misogynist and being disrespectful. So I think that it's important to really be conscious of those things when you're making art, when you're expressing yourself. That's really important, especially in female impersonation, or in using breastplates, or in kind of boring the feminine aspects. It's important to have a bit of respect at the same time, and to really know what you're boring, and how to do it with some respect. And so I like to do that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. If you could seduce one celebrity while in full drag, who would it be?
Ooh, I think I'd want to pick Jason Momoa. I don't want to say that I'm not petite, but I'm not petite. So having a giant guy or a guy that's bigger when you're in drag, it does add to the illusion.
Jason Momoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, I picked Jason.
Before we wrap, what can my listeners and people of the world look forward to for you in the next coming months?
Well, I am headed out on a tour of Australia. I'm doing the Snatch Game as Shirley Temple. After that, I'll be coming back to Vegas for another residency here into the fall. So you'll have to come back and see me.
You know I will. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that we made this work. It was so worth coming down here and just getting to see you again, just who you are, what you stand for. It's truly amazing. And I really appreciate you choosing my platform to share your story and be so vulnerable.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me on your show and for doing this. It's so important to have
truly
voices
amazing.
And to have allies like you that are amplifying queer voices and queer stories.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. We will be back next week with another exciting episode. Jimbo, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
This episode of Trying to Figure It Out is brought to you by the Hacienda Village Meat and Italian Deli. You guys, I love my meats, okay? I am an Italian to my core. I grew up in New York with a Long Island Italian family. There is nothing I know more about than a good Italian deli. And since living in LA, I have not found one of those until I found the Hacienda Village Meat and Italian Deli. You guys, not only do they have the best owners and the nicest staff, but the meats are insane. I know my sausages. I know my salamis. I know a good sandwich when I see one. And let me tell you guys, the quality is 10 out of 10. It is so good. I couldn't recommend it more. So if you live in the Southern California area, or you're coming to Los Angeles anytime soon, please, please, please make your way over to the Hacienda Village Meat and Italian Deli. I promise you won't regret it.